why is a Skagit line so versatile? A Skagit line doesn't just end at the end of the loop-to-loop. You have to add a tip to a Skagit head. And you can add different types of densities, from floating to really heavy sinking tips. And what does that do? Well, it can allow me to, if I want to, now this isn't my favorite thing to do, but I could dry fly fish with a Skagit head. And I think I'll show that in a bit. You can also nymph with indicators, or even dry droppers, of course. We could also swing flies. We can strip streamers. There's just a whole bunch of things we can do with the Skagit head. Now, there are some cons with Skagits. Because they're really thick, they could make a bit more of your presence known for fishing. Now, that's not that big of a deal when it comes to streamer fishing, but it could be a big deal when you want to sneak up on that really wary brown trout on the river like this, where they don't really tolerate too much splashing. The thing that I really like about Skagits is their ability to cast with like minimal back cast room. Not just that, but I also like that it can work in really tight conditions when I need to like get underneath something. And I've done this technique quite a bit and it's been very successful. It gets the fly where it needs to go, and I don't need to be going with like some serious back cast or anything like that, because the weight of this head is just so powerful that we can get into these spots with like minimal movement, which is really key for my success when it comes to fly fishing. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So when it comes to versatility, it's really about the tips that you use. So for me, I'm gonna start swinging little soft hackles, little size 14 soft hackles, and you can do that with the Skagit head. And by the way, this is a 250 grain OPST Skagit integrated Commando smooth head. All we're gonna do is we'll just snip this guy off, hook him up. It's a zoo cougar, by the way. Really, really cool fly. Really cool. And we're just going to take this loop-to-loop off of this sink tip that I have. It's a 5-foot sink tip. It's about 6 inches per second. Now all I'm going to do is put on an intermediate polyleader. And this is an 8-foot polyleader, intermediate. And for me, I tend to leave tippet on these. So all I got to do is just go ahead and start fishing. Clear intermediate polyleader, and we have our little soft hackle on there, zipped up. Kick that back, and let's work this riffle right behind me and see what happens. Swinging is so much fun. I love it so much. It's just like the way to fish, in my opinion. The beauty part of having such a big polyleader, and when I mean big, I'm talking about an 8-foot polyleader here. It's because it doesn't create as much commotion where the fish are going to see it, and we're just making the tiniest bit of a roll cast. Oh my goodness, that was a sweet hit. Let's see. That was probably a brown. Browns, I find, attack soft hackles like none other, but they give you usually one shot here. Now you can do fancy, you know, Skagit casts here, but you don't really need to. All I'm doing is lifting the rod up, making a little D-loop there, and just boom, out it goes. Crossing my fingers, there's a brown on the feed. Okay, nothing there. Little guy again. Oh yeah, there we go. That's a nice little guy. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a rainbow. Definitely the way he's fighting. There you go. Sweet. Nice little rainbow. Okay, buddy. Always wet your hands here. Look at that guy. Cute little guy. Here you go. Here you go. See you later. Oops. I think you kind of get the gist of swinging with this. I mean, that's what they're meant for, but there's so much more you can do with it. So why don't I show you some that you don't really do with the Skagit, and let's do a little bit of let's do some dry fly fishing, see what happens. So let's rig that up. So you have a couple options when it comes to dry fly fishing with a Skagit head, and basically it's either you use a floating tip, okay, like a 5 or 6 or a 7-foot floating tip, 8-foot floating tip, and then you add a leader to that, or you use a polyleader. So what I have here is an 8-foot floating polyleader. This is the easiest way to do it, so I'm going to show you that instead, rather than putting in a floating tip and then a leader on that. I think I'll do that one day. Polyleaders are really cool because they have a loop-to-loop on them. So you just run that loop-to-loop in there. Okay, so just gonna get a dry fly now. Zip everything up, we're good. All right, so if I can unhook myself here. Floating polyleader, dry fly, Skagit head. Let's see if we can get it done. There's a lot of mass here when we're doing it, so I'm basically I'm doing a parachute cast. I'm like bringing it up and then I'm just kind of dropping it ever so slightly on here. All right, let me just do that again. I'm just very gently dropping it down. Seems like they like that seam over there, so I'm gonna let out a little more line and I'm just gonna drop it over here. There we go, that's the drift. Come on, come on, come on, you gotta be playing ball, dude. The other thing that you're gonna notice when it comes to dry fly fishing with a Skagit head, mending is a little more difficult. Watching my fly with intent. And I do this to dry it off sometimes. Okay, there we go. Sorry folks, I can't get a fish on film with the dry fly. Oh, that was a brown. That's okay. It's okay. Here we go. He might go again. He might go again. Maybe we can get him with the next technique. And the next technique is going under. So we're gonna do nymphing with this guy here. And the beauty part is we're gonna keep the polyleader that we have on here. So all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add an indicator and then just a nymph. I'm probably gonna go with a bead-headed nymph just so I don't have to put any split shot on, and let's see what happens. So here we go. So indicator fishing with a Skagit head. We are almost ready. I'm just gonna put on an Oros indicator. Okay, so there's an issue. I don't have any Tippet with me, any Flourocarbon Tippet, unfortunately, with me. Totally forgot, but that's okay. The good news is that we're still gonna give it a shot. So what I have here is a floating polyleader. I have an Oros indicator on it, and about 2 feet down I have a little zebra midge with the tungsten head on it. We're gonna give it a shot. We're gonna see what happens, just so I can show you that you can nymph with it. There we go. Another little rainbow. There you go. There you go. What you want when you're nymph fishing, one of the casts that you want to do is kind of like a tuck cast. So you bring it out and then you drive it in like that. And if you notice the fly, oh, lost one. You gotta like parachute it and then tuck it, and it's like the weirdest thing. But once you get it, like, we're gonna parachute and then lift up right at the last second there. I hope that's coming out on camera. I don't even have to mend it much. We're gonna parachute, tuck. That's how I've been able to nymph fish with some degree of success when it comes to this, when it comes to fishing like this. It's like, I call it the para tuck. I don't know what else to call it, but I will just like kind of let it go down and then just drop it in like that. And it's just you're just flicking up that last second. That's all I'm doing. That was a lot of fun. I could just sit here for hours catching fish on zebra midges. but it just goes to show you how versatile Skagit is. It doesn't matter. Obviously, when we're talking about Skagit, right off the top of your head, you're thinking streamers and swinging big flies like, you know, intruders or those types of things, spay flies, big spay flies, all that fun stuff. Okay, well, I'm here to share what I think these things are really great for, especially the integrated type of Skagit heads that I have on right now, this OPST smooth, Commando smooth. The best part about it is that I could just put on a 5-foot sinking tip with some Flourocarbon, or in my case, I'm using Ultragreen today. And I can cast in really tight situations with this guy and still be effective. I like, the other thing that's really cool is I like how I can get underneath undercuts. How I can get underneath like those branches, the low undercut branches and undercuts with branches, all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm talking about. Those places really suck when you need to do some backcasts. You're thinking about making sure you don't hook up behind you, and then you're looking forward, and there's just too much to think about there. With the Skagit, I don't have that. I just do a little circle spade, snap T, whatever, and flick it in there, and it's boom, it's in there. It works really, really well. There's so much you can do with a Skagit and streamers. It's unbelievable. And I think that honestly, when it comes to fishing on small streams and small rivers, I don't see why you wouldn't use it. Essentially, if you arm yourself with 3 Polyleaders, that's all you need if you're doing single hand Skagit. You got a floating, you got an intermediate, and you got a sinking one. And I would go with like a sink 5 or a sink 6, something in that range. I mean, you basically got it all. Now, if you're gonna try to do, I'm just gonna drop that in the water, whatever. If you're going to go into more streamer stuff, hardcore streamers, like you want to cast some heavier streamers, then you got to actually get the mini Sinktips that OPST sells. And I think Scientific Anglers sells them too. I'm just trying to, open your mind up to all these awesome ways of catching fish. Yes, Skagit is great for streamers and swinging, intruders, all that kind of junk, but you can do everything else with them. I find that this is the most enjoyable and the most versatile way. If I had one fly line to choose, it's going to be a Skagit line, because I just find that I can do so much more with a floating Skagit line than I can with a standard weight forward floating line. That's just my personal opinion, but I hope this video kind of illustrates how cool and versatile it is. Yes, now I didn't catch fish on every technique. Unfortunately, it's not streamer weather. Maybe if it gets a little more cloudy, we might coax a fish into grabbing a streamer, but that's okay. It's still fun to be out here. It's still fun to experiment. Hope you found this video useful. If you have, please, it would mean a lot if you give it a thumbs up, share, subscribe. It does mean a lot. It helps the channel, and I'm going for world domination in the fly fishing world. So let's do this together. All right, have a great time. I'm Milan. Keep her tight.